What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Optimize You podcast. We are the podcast helping you optimize feeling and looking your best every single week. If you're new to the podcast, make sure you subscribe. If you're not new, make sure you share it with a friend, coworker, family member. We appreciate all the help. And now in today's podcast.
I remember the first time when I wanted to just lean out. I wanted to try to see my abs. I wanted to have visible abs. I remember very distinctly, I can remember the first time where I'm like, okay, I had a couple of friends in the industry, some couple like well-known people that were like super, super knowledgeable. But for whatever reason, looking back, I didn't lean on them for information. Like they were the homies. Like I would work out with them and I would always get like workout tips from them and stuff. But as far as like achieving a certain amount of leanness that they had, it was almost like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's almost like, man, like I don't want to ask them about it. I don't want to ask them I don't want to bug them, or like I don't want to sound stupid like I don't know. And that's probably just coming from a young, like immature mind, but that's how I felt. I was like, man, I don't want to ask these guys that are obviously possessing phenomenal physiques and like do this for a living. I was like, I don't know. It's cool that they let me hang out and work out with them all the time, but I don't want to bug them and like ask them about, which by the way, like looking back in hindsight, those are the nicest people in the gym, like by far. So I don't know why I was so scared to like take their information, or even worse, show that I didn't know the information and them kind of like think that they would belittle me or make fun of me. So that was like a big mistake that I went through. So what I did was, this was like where most of the information you're getting from is like magazines too, right? Like health and fitness magazines. And like, this is back in the day. So it's like, I had very limited resources unless you were actually going to use the resources that were right in front of you. So my thing was just like, I'm just going to eat like vegetables and I'm going to eat as much chicken breast as I possibly can, rice and vegetables. And that was like it worked, but it was the worst thing I could have done. Like it was terrible. I remember trying to flavor like my chicken breast, didn't know how to cook it, right? Like didn't want to ask anybody about that too. Just kind of like wanted to do my own thing. I remember making rice. That was easy. That was simple to make. And then vegetables, I remember getting the frozen, and I still do this. I remember getting the frozen chopped up veggies and like would just mix those. And I would like literally have the same meal for like 3 or 4 times throughout an entire single day. And I hated it. Like it was the worst thing ever. And I look back now, there was no conscious or awareness of like how many calories I was consuming. There was no like protein target. There was no carbohydrate amount. There was no like fat. It was just like eat chicken, veggies, and rice. And like, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and assuming we keep working out as hard as we can, like things will work out. Maybe we'll see our abs. And I did. I got to the point where like I gritted and grinded through it and like just clawed through it. And I did, but I hated it. I was miserable. I was like, there's no way like this is sustainable. And this is the only way. Like, obviously this worked and that was super cool. But man, I hate this. Like I was super like, I'm not going to have a cookie. I'm not going to have a little, not even a mini Snickers that I get, like on Halloween, like none of that. Like, I'm not going to cheat. And I like, dude, looking back now, I'm like, that's borderline like eating disorder. That's like a healthy eating disorder, right? Healthy food eating disorder that's not healthy, right? Like,
what do they call it? It's what is that? Know. What is that term? It's like
straight obsessed.
Is it called orthorexia?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it might be orthorexia, where
maybe
where it's basically.
Yeah, look that up. I'm curious. I don't know. But dude, yeah,
obsession with healthy eating.
Yeah.
Obsession with healthy eating.
So I had that. I didn't even know that's what it was, but I had that like aggressive, dude. And the second I saw results, I just doubled down on it. I was like, okay, don't deviate from the path. And by the way, if you've been eating junk and carbs and sugary carbohydrates and processed shit, and like you experience all this inflammation, and that's how you've been living your entire life, right? And then all of a sudden you switch over to a chicken, veggie, and rice diet, and that's all you eat. Like, dude, you saw results quick, right? So I got super excited and I was like, damn, I cut out all the processed shit. Like I wasn't experiencing any bloating or inflammation anymore. And like, I was eating super lean food. I was probably, looking back, even though I was consuming 3 or 4 meals, I was probably at like maybe 2,000 calories, maybe, you
Yeah.
know, like that's fucking nothing, dude, you know, like, and the veggies on my plate would be like super small, but I do it just to say I did it. And like, yeah, man, for sure. I guess I had a disorder.
Yeah, dude. And I had the
So,
same kind of thing for when I first actually I remember this being right after my senior year when I'd gotten drafted, but I was hurt. Right. So it was gonna be from, it was like what June, July was, I think it was June was the draft. And it wasn't
mhm.
gonna be till next spring training that I was gonna be able to start playing because I'd just gotten hurt, second to last game of the year. And I was like committed then. I'm like, I'm gonna stop drinking. I'm gonna get in the best shape of my life. I'm gonna like go into spring training just on the highest possible note, like in the best shape I can. And like what I ended up doing was I was I could only work out legs, so I worked out legs like 5 days a week. I would do sprints. And I mean, I got my legs got so strong. I got like in such good shape. I was really fast. But I would eat like just as clean as possible as well. I didn't drink for like 3 months. I went just basically I would eat chicken, rice, and mixed vegetables for like every meal, right? So I ate like no fat for a long period of time, and I think that ended up eventually tanking my testosterone at a certain point because I wasn't eating any dietary fat. But I think what you're talking about as well, like eventually we kind of go through these trials and tribulations, but you kind of mentioned from the start you struggled with asking for help, really, right? And
Mhm.
like you had all these people, and I think this is something that I still do struggle with in certain times. I kind of catch myself. I'm like, oh, like I'm trying to do this on my own. Like there's people at work that are so much more successful and have been doing this for so long. Like ask them, like figure out a good answer to this. And it accelerates the process so much more, right? Whatever you're doing, there's people who have been doing it a lot longer than you, who have gone through the mistakes and have done the mistakes that you're eventually going to do if you don't ask for help. And so I think that that's a huge lesson that it sounds like both of us have learned over the course of the years of health and fitness, but also different areas of our life where it's like when you kind of take your ego out of it and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to go into this with the idea that I have no knowledge on it and just figure out how can I get ahead as quickly as possible. Well, find some of the most experienced people on the team. Find some of the most experienced lifters that you know, or some of the people who like are the most knowledgeable with health and fitness. Maybe coaches that you know. Podcasts. I know Mind Pump was always one that really helped me a lot with. It wasn't necessarily like going to somebody that I knew, but it was going to somebody that I trusted that was going to give me information that was going to help me move forward. Right. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be going to sources around you or friends or family or whatever. It can be just going to like reputable sources that have podcasts, reputable, like reading reputable articles, like whatever it is that can help you. YouTube videos. There's plenty of people on YouTube as well that know what they're talking about. And I would use a lot of that stuff. And I think where you just have to be careful there is like who you follow, because some people, I think we talked about this on one of our previous episodes where we were diving into like mistakes that we made, where you have a lot of these influencers out there that aren't showing the whole story. And so like what they're telling you to do is completely different to what they're actually doing. And maybe they're also using steroids or other like enhancers, performance enhancers that are making it so that they can work out 7 days a week and not suffer the consequences in their recovery. Like a lot of different things that play into this.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And it's crazy because now everybody has such easy access to the online stuff like we're talking about, YouTube,
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, social media. Like it's great. It can be really, really good. It can also be really, really confusing. Right. And I look back in hindsight where I didn't have all those things when I was starting. I had like bodybuilding.com was like the main reference point of like everything to go to. And it's cool because the people that I knew and like my buddies that I would train with, they were very high up, like in the ranks on bodybuilding.com. Like they were known in the community, and I had resources right there that I could ask. And I guess I kind of just like let my ego get in the way, and I just didn't want to be embarrassed that I didn't know some of those things. I didn't know about macros. I didn't know about calories. I didn't know about how to fuel your body properly. I was just like, let me just go with what I think is right and what I've kind of heard through the grapevine. And maybe if I start getting results, then I'll just keep doing it, and I'll just keep guessing until I figure it out. I was scared to ask. I was afraid, I was fearful. And looking back now, I'm like, dang, I guess I could have took some I guess I took some benefits from it in terms of like I learned the hard way, right? Like I figured it out eventually. But man, like you were saying, I could have accelerated my process. I could have skipped a lot of hurdles and speed bumps and like probably some internal damage that I did, like looking back long term, like, man, to your point, like I ate very little fats in my diet and like
Yeah.
and it sounds like you did the same, right? Like just
Yeah.
chicken, rice,
I
mixed
thought fat
veggies,
made you
like,
fat, right? It was
yeah,
like,
totally.
I was
I
like,
did
fat
too.
is going to make me fat. I looked for foods that didn't have fat in it because I thought that was like how
Same,
you lean out, right?
same. Yeah. And like, honestly, to a degree, yes. But looking now on obviously what we know and how beneficial fats are for the body, the functionality, hormone balance, gut health,
Yeah.
it's the glue that holds everything together, right? Like we know how important they are now, but back in the day, like there is some validity to that in terms of if you avoid fat, like, okay, fat's going to make me fat, not in that regard, but in terms of calorically dense, how powerful and how quickly fats can add up.
Yeah.
There is some truth to that, right? So it's like you can't just eat peanut butter all day, right? Like, and so avoiding fats by default, kind of, even though it wasn't the intention and the mindset was probably incorrect in terms of like, oh, I don't want to gain fat. If I eat more fat, I'm going to get fat. That was our mindset, which was incorrect. But it probably helped us consume less calories, although it didn't put us in a healthy position, right? So
Yeah.
it did the job of leaning us out. But back then, that's kind of how I viewed things. I was just looking at very surface level, like, am I getting more lean or not? Like, am I able to see what I've been building and working or not? And that's all I really cared about. And I didn't really, go any deeper than that. I just knew like, okay, if I don't consume fats, all I know is I'm just getting leaner right now, and
Yeah.
not knowing how unhealthy it was for me.
Oh, for sure, dude. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I did the same thing for a long period of time. I think I've told this on the podcast. My testosterone tanked. I'm sure it was, maybe binge drinking as well. Probably didn't play a good factor into that. I'm
Yeah,
sure
that
there
ain't
was
gonna
a
help.
lot of other things that were going on, but I did eat a very low fat diet for a long period of time because that's what I thought. But also like that comes back to asking for help. And like we sometimes can feel like we're going to look stupid, right? And I think what I've found just through people who've asked me for help in different areas, for people that I've asked in different areas for help, people are like excited to help, right? It's
Mm.
almost in our nature where we want to help people. It's like, oh, hell yeah. Like I want to show like the knowledge that I have, or like be able to make somebody's day or make it easier on somebody. And a lot of these people that we're scared to ask help for are like chomping at the bit to help people, right? And so I think that's
That's such a
just
good
something
point.
as well. Yeah.
That's such a good point, dude. It's like we're always afraid to ask, and then once we do, it's like the person that we're asking, it actually, most of the time, generally speaking, it makes them feel good because they're like, oh, I'm in a position of authority. I can share some knowledge. I can help you out. I know the answers to the questions that you're asking because I'm either educated enough or, hey, man, I went through the same thing you did, and here's how I was able to fix it. Like, so that gives them a sense of joy, of like contribution, of satisfaction. And so we have to remember it from that perspective too. Like, obviously looking back on what I should have done, I was like, oh yeah, I could have easily just saved myself a lot of headache and probably damage internally if I would have asked, if I simply would have just asked, because I was around some very knowledgeable people. But I didn't want to, and I was afraid. And I know there's people listening to this too that were like, they found themselves in certain circumstances. We're always in that position of where we're like afraid to ask because we either don't want to bother somebody, or we feel like we're going to show ourselves and look stupid and like show that what little we do know. And so we don't want to deal with that. So we're like, oh, it's easier if we just brush it under the rug. I'll just figure it out on my own. Right. Or I'll just look it up. I'll watch YouTube, or I'll watch somebody's social media. And then you start diving down those rabbit holes where you're like, okay, well, this person said carbs are bad, stay away from carbs. And then this person's saying that you need carbs. Like, I'm just as confused as when I started, right?
Yeah.
And so like people are in that boat now, which I feel horrible for people. So that's why you and I are always trying to help people out as best as we possibly can. So yeah, it's tough.
Oh, for sure, dude. Yeah, there's like an information overload out there, which is one of the hardest aspects of the health and fitness industry. And also you have all these people that are just trying to stand out, so they're just tossing bullshit out there.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
It's you get these people that it's so hard to stand out in the industry these days because there's so many coaches, trainers, and experts, and gurus and whatever it is. So it's, you gotta really, seems like the only way to stand out is by just putting some crazy take out there that people are like, well, I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
You're supposed to like eat the whole egg with the, with it's like you're supposed to eat the whole egg raw with the shell on it, and
Yeah.
that's gonna lead to more fat burning and puts you in ketosis, and then
Yeah.
you're going to, it's like all
Dude,
this shit. It's like, oh,
yeah, you know what the problem is people make blanket statements on one little small true statement, right? Like, so
yeah,
that's what it is. It's like a study will prove something, right? And a perfect example, somebody left a comment on my social media earlier today, and they were like, I was using stevia in a recipe, right? And their comment was, don't use stevia. There's Harvard and Stanford studies that show that stevia make you struggle with losing weight, with weight loss. And I was like, that may be true. Like, and so I looked up the studies that they said. I said, please elaborate. Like, let me know more about this. Like, because this is news to me. And so I open up the studies, and it says it's mixed, basically saying like some studies may potentially show that there's weight gain, and then other studies show that there's proof that stevia can help contribute to weight loss. So I'm telling them like, hey, this is a mixed study. Like, it's going back and forth saying there may be and there's potentially, and like all these things. And I'm like, but just coming on here and making a blanket statement like, hey, don't eat stevia because it's going to make you gain weight, or it's going to make it difficult for you to lose weight. And I'm like, that's a broad statement. That's a very general, bold statement to make to people who, there's people out there that absolutely can benefit from using an artificial sweetener or stevia right
oh
now
yeah,
if in their current circumstance, and crush it losing weight. And I have a ton of clients like using that for an example. And I know this person just meant good, and they meant like with good intention. They're trying to, like look out for people and be a provider of information. But that's the problem with the industry, is people will take a little small study and run with it and make these blanket statements like these one size fits all, when everything needs context, right? Like, everything is a one-off, case by case scenario. Like, if you and I have talked about it before too, it's just like about like good foods and bad foods. How are you deeming foods as good and bad? Like, if somebody is pulled from the desert and they're starving, and the first thing they can grasp and get their hands on is a donut, was that food bad for that person in that circumstance, or are they actually going to benefit from it? So
yeah,
it's all case by case scenario. And people just, that's the problem with the social media thing, is when you're looking for information and seeking in this sea of just fuckery, there's people that are taking small little partially true statements and like making these broad claims with them. And it's just like, so then people get afraid to do anything, like, oh shit, I can't eat eggs. I can't even drink tap water. I can't do, I can't breathe air, And so like people are afraid, they don't know what to do.
yeah, dude. Well, it's crazy, and not only is there like studies people will run with, but also you kind of see it with somebody who sees success in a certain area of like fat loss or whatever, and then they think that everybody has to follow that exact same way. So it's like you
Mm-hmm.
kind of see with certain diets out there, right? Like keto, right?
Keto. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been popular, right? But like somebody loses a ton of weight on keto, and they assume that like that's the thing that everybody should be doing, and they become a coach, and like that is the method that they use for everybody, when there's just, everybody's body's different, everybody's lifestyle is different, everybody has different things going on, different foods that sit well with them, different foods that don't. Just a lot of different factors play in, and so there's no, like you said, no one size fits all advice to everybody. And for somebody, like you said, maybe stevia is like a terrible thing for them to, maybe they have a reaction to it, or maybe they are intolerant to it.
Right.
But then for somebody else, like who's been just pounding sugar and eating
Yeah.
tons of, like, then maybe stevia is like a great little substitution that they can make to just easily cut back on tons and tons of calories, empty calories that they were eating before. So it is really something. That's why we always suggest that everybody like figures out, try stuff out for themselves, trial and error,
Mm-hmm.
figure out what works best for you. We're not going to like knock anything out there, because we know that everything has some sort of person that it's going to work for. Right. It's just, I've had different things that have worked for me at different times in my in my life as well. And it really depends on your life changes from season to season. Like maybe you're super busy one season, and what was working for you when you were not busy at all isn't working for you anymore, and you got to make shifts and small adjustments. Like that's what's cool about this whole thing, is like it's, this whole year has kind of been like a tough year when it comes to like health and fitness. I've just been on a roller coaster ride, trying to figure things out, trying to figure out what's going to work best for me. And, in the end, I'm still in pretty good shape. Right. And so like in the midst of like 8-7 months that have just been like some months I feel like I'm crushing it, I'm on top of the world. Other months I feel like I'm just so far off the plan. You kind of go through those and you get to the other side of it and you're like, oh, I'm actually still in pretty good shape. Like I'm still where I want to be in some respect. And so I don't know where I was fucking going with that, honestly.
I think it all
Sometimes you
comes
start
down.
talking
Yeah.
and then it's like you just like I lost myself there at a certain point. I don't know.
I mean, I think it all just comes that we were talking about like information and like information overload, not being willing to ask questions to people who are, reliable sources of information just because you're in fear or you're scared or things like that. And then the alternative is to go online and then you're in this sea of just fuckery and like not knowing who to follow and what to believe. And so it can be like this chaotic, stressful, super thing. But I will say this, like anytime you see somebody taking like super hard stances on controversial topics in health and fitness, it's usually bullshit. And what I mean by that is like exactly what Alex said, is in terms of I did keto, so I got results. So it's the exact prescription that everybody should do. Like very hard stances on things like that. I just look at it. The easiest and most simple way to look at things is go, they're all tools and they all work. Just figuring out what's going to work for you in your given circumstance and scenario is the most important thing, which is why you should consider having a coach, because a coach can streamline that for you. Right. And going, okay, maybe keto does work for you. And maybe we can use it like intermittently and we can use it temporarily, but I'm not going to have you be on keto for the rest of your life. Right. And so like you can use it as a tool to get you to certain points in your journey, and you may be able to use it as like a ton of leverage and it really, really works for you, but maybe it's not the end all be all. Maybe it's not the only diet for you. Maybe it gets you over a hump and helps you break through a temporary plateau or something, or whatever the case may be. But they're all just tools. And it's the same thing that we hear with people with like intermittent fasting. Like, cool, it's a tool. Like, to what degree you want to choose to use it in your journey is completely up to you, your coach, the person guiding you, like, etc. But none of these things are like complete end all be alls. It's just which ones do you want to use, which ones are going to work for you sustainably, and which ones are going to kind of fit your unique lifestyle.
Yeah, dude. And then guys, if you want a great, amazing coach, Matt, pop in his DMs. Best in the business.
You
Not
can hit me
fucking
up.
around. Honestly, the guy is going to get you results. So like if you are looking for a coach or looking to talk to somebody about getting into potentially having a coach, reach out to Matt. He'll pop his DM or his Instagram in the description here below. You can go DM him, get him as a coach. Trust me.
Yeah, shoot me a message. And even if I can't help you and you got some questions, maybe I could shoot you in the right direction and at least give you some starting steps if it doesn't work out from a coaching standpoint. Like, if you guys just have questions and if there's any way that I can help, I'm here for it.
I love it, dude. Well, good shit. Well, this is a good pod. Hopefully you guys got help from this, and make sure you do ask for help. That's the goal of this podcast today, is like, don't make the mistake that we've made for so long. Like just go ask somebody. People will be more than happy to help. Ask us, ask Matt, ask like whoever you feel comfortable asking. And people love to help you get forward. And then you're not going to make the same mistakes that they did, right? Or that we did. And that's the big thing about help, is that you bypass those mistakes. You can get a formula that works, right? And I mean, obviously it depends on who you ask. If you do ask the wrong people, sometimes you won't get a formula that works, but at least, by asking, you can figure out, oh, does this make sense? If you ask a few people and you kind of take like the middle of that information and figure out, there's a lot of different ways to go, but in the end, trial and error, ask for help, and you're going to get a lot farther than just trying to make all these same mistakes that everybody else has made to get to the end result of 10 years of frustration to finally see the results thereafter. So hopefully it's been helpful. Appreciate you, Matt. Appreciate you guys watching every single day and week. If you have any questions, please just pop in the comments for our YouTube videos or on our Spotify, Apple. We'll get to those. If you have certain topics you want to hear, we're more than happy to do that. We want to cater to what you guys want to hear. And otherwise, if you do enjoy this and this has been helpful, make sure you just share it with somebody that you think could benefit from. That's all we ask from you guys. We do appreciate you. Hope you have a good rest of the day, week. We'll be talking to you soon.